disability refers to the limitations in functioning caused by conditions, injuries, or illnesses, whether they affect physical or mental health. It encompasses a range of issues, including disorders like autism spectrum disorder and mood disorders such as depression. People with disabilities face levels of violence compared to those without disabilities. Specifically, individuals who experience disabilities encounter incidents of violence and discrimination. Gender differences play a role in the type of violence reported. Men with disabilities tend to report violence more often, while women with disabilities are more likely to disclose instances of severe sexual violence, humiliation, and discrimination. Interestingly, the severity or visibility of disability does not appear to be a contributing factor when it comes to experiencing violence. Violence comes in many forms, such as self-directed, self-harm or suicidal attempts, interpersonal, family or intimate partner violence, or collective, politically or economically motivated. More distressing, however, is violence that is inflicted in close relationships and involves more force or is endured for a longer time. Violent events that are interpersonal and intentional, for example, torture, rape, abuse, or bullying, are more difficult for people to cope with compared to non-intentional events such as serious accidents. Biological elements including genetics, hormonal imbalances, or brain damage or anomalies. A person's personality disorder such as borderline or antisocial personality disorder A person's personality disorder, such as borderline or antisocial personality disorder, may make them more likely to engage in aggressive behavior. Violence is also more likely to occur in people who have experienced trauma, abuse, or neglect. Social influences people who grow up in violent homes or societies may be more likely to act violently themselves. Violence can also be influenced by other elements such as deprivation, unemployment, substance misuse, and media violent exposure. Increased mortality, morbidity, and disability are three major outcomes that could occur as a result of being exposed to violence. Interpersonal violence is frequently followed by an increase in psychological morbidity, most notably depression, suicidality, substance misuse, or post-traumatic stress disorders. Victims may feel dread, anxiety, and emotional discomfort, which may have an adverse effect on their mental health and general well-being. Additionally, they could struggle with establishing and preserving healthy relationships, getting a job, and getting access to health care. That is why this problem requires proper handling. Further, to increased awareness and screening, the need for coordinated assessment of causes of violence and policies on prevention, as well as treatment and support. Specifically, the high level of sexual violence among women reporting mental disabilities demands further inquiry and action. In order to address the much higher levels of violence reported by individuals with disabilities, especially those with mental disorders, it is important to first understand the amount of violence against vulnerable populations. Employers, service providers, and other healthcare professionals should be aware of these patterns of susceptibility, as well as how they intersect with other risk variables such as gender. In addition, the recurrently high rates of reported verbal and physical abuse, humiliation, and financial abuse point to the necessity for organizations to recognize and address non-physical and domestic violence. This calls for awareness of the elements that make disabled individuals vulnerable, such as their need of personal care, social exclusion, and communication challenges. It is necessary yet rare to have specialized services for people with disabilities who are victims of domestic abuse. The findings on disability-related discrimination also highlight the need for increased public awareness of this problem and its consequences to society in terms of employment, education, and service supply. The findings here hopefully serve as a foundation for future research and action on discrimination that addresses multiple factors and the seemingly increased incidence of discrimination.
Different perspectives of the parties involved. The victim. They are faced with the daily challenges in the forms of harassment and discrimination for other people who believe that they, the victim or victims, are a lesser human. The offenders. They view people with disabilities as inferior beings. Their opinion may have been formed due to lack of proper education or some form of bias. They may not always be aware that they are being discriminative against PWD. Perpetrator Perspective 2.0. There are also perpetrators who are knowledgeable about the PWD and chose to harm with the motivation of gaining or just power tripping. They are not blinded by ignorance but blinded by the thought of belittling a person who has less control of their autonomy or conscious mind or has unstable mind. The perpetrator either wants to boost their ego or either exploit the properties of a victim.
A person can be held morally responsible for an action only if they had the freedom to choose and to act otherwise. Freedom is a necessary condition for moral responsibility. So what should I do? We must hold ourselves responsible for what we do. Freedom and responsibility go together. Our choices are free in a sense that 1. No outside factors determine our will. 2. In any particular case, we could have acted otherwise than we did. And 3. We are therefore responsible for our choices in a way that justifies our moral praise and blame. In situations where we must make a choice, we find ourselves facing an open range of possible courses of action where nothing compels us to choose one course of action over the other. So in situations where we witness violence and discrimination, we should speak out. We should be the voice of the voiceless. We are free not to do so, but let us remember that we have that moral responsibility. Let us treat others with fairness and compassion. Let us not be the reason of their pain and turbulence.
An understanding that violence is embedded in community, professional, organizational, and global state relations settings lends itself to a renewed appreciation of the strategic importance of community work. People with disabilities are right holders who must be offered agencies to make their own decisions and to participate on an equal basis with most people. Empowerment of people with disabilities can be provided by providing sufficient resourcing for existing and emerging organizations, and building the capacity of existing national umbrella organizations is one way to address the problem. In addition, building their capacity and strengthening their voices at the national level improves their representation at the global level as well. So in all areas of disability practice and research, attention should be paid to ensuring that this historically neglected area is now able to make full use of this essential global mechanism for accountability for the rights of people with disabilities. More broadly, strengthening procedures for the meaningful participation of people with disabilities is likely to lead to improved accountability for their rights at the national and international level. The Philippines should, as soon as possible, take steps to abolish the guardianship regime and the legal provisions allowing for the restriction of legal capacity on the basis of impairment, and replace it with a supported decision-making system. Violence matters. Violence wrecks and shortens people's lives. It causes fear, pain, suffering, as well as demeans. And as proud Filipinos, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Stand against discrimination. Stand against violence.